before we run these conferences, I run a conference call with the panellists to discuss, what we're going to talk about and try and create some shape so that on the day that you have a good experience from listening and engaging with them. And I think we'd all agree that we had quite a long and detailed discussion, the four of us, about how we should optimise the time to explain about this venture capital thing. So I hope with some of the issues we're going to talk about in this panel, you'll come away with some really thought-provoking comments from the panellists and really enlightened as to really is this venture capital world something that you really like the look of and would like to get more involved in, maybe in a different way to the way you thought, or maybe it's something which actually is quite dissimilar from standard corporate or standard charitable or standard quoted type roles. Before we sort of get into the deep and dark detail, if everyone could just introduce themselves. I know we've got David here on my right, if you would like to say hello, and then we'll kick off from there.
Hi, I'm Dave Hall from Wirefact Apartments. Spot the investors were in grey suits today, so I didn't. Quite impressed that I managed to say, got through the question about when you get involved without mentioning the fee.
Hi everyone, I'm Adam Crossley. I am a partner in the private equity team at Charles Russell Speeches, which is a law firm based here in London.
And I'm Hazel Moore, I'm the chairman and co-founder of First Capital, and we work a lot with venture capital and private equity backed businesses.
Thank you very much. So this is very much, often so much VCs talking about the money, and this time we talk about the people issue, so we'll try and keep the comments around that. But David, people are the big issue in backing a business, aren't they? Isn't that the big issue?
It's certainly when I joined in private equity, everyone was talking about management. But there are different styles of private equity house. So if you were to sit in our investment committee, actually we talk market first, management second, and price third. So for us, the most important thing in the business is the business in terms of which market it's operating in, whether the market is growing or not growing, whether there's changes in the market, and from that flows our decision as to the non-executive or executive chairman that we look to appoint. So we start first with the business the market operates in, rather than necessarily the people. The only exception to that will be at points in time if we think that the management team needs molding, but we might then look for the people skills within the market chairman as well.
Very interesting, because it's not, how many of you thought this management was the big thing? Do any of you believe that? Yeah, certainly I think most people would be hanging out over two people. Okay, at least two of us agree. So, but is that really the truth, Hazel? You work with a lot of different VCs. Is David the new trend, or is...
I think that different VCs and private equity houses have different modus operandi. I know a lot of funds that will look at the people first and take the view that if you have strong, successful team that has a proven track record of ability to execute, that they will make it work. And that that if the business starts off in one direction but doesn't quite manage to execute on a particular opportunity, they'll be able to take it in a different direction and will end up being successful. And then there are others who look at the market first and consider perhaps the management team as a bit more potentially disposable. And therefore that if the team isn't executing an opportunity, but the opportunity is good, then the market is good, then they might swap in and out some members of the team. So I think it does depend on the type of fund that you're talking to and their particular way of operating.
And Hazel, look at it from your perspective, what sort of people do you think get on well in VC, whether it's entrepreneurs or indeed executives around the entrepreneur? What's your observation of this?
So I think in this regard we're talking about the executive team because there are obviously roles within a venture-backed business which relates to what's the team that is operationally responsible on a day-to-day basis, and then there's what kind of non-execs do you bring in around that team. But from an executive team perspective, we've actually seen quite a lot of situations where people have had a very successful career in a corporate environment and then have looked to transfer into an entrepreneurial business and really struggled and found it hard, because that kind of corporate network, that sort of support, the resources, the distribution that you have available to you in a large corporate just doesn't exist in an entrepreneurial environment. So the people that are prepared to roll up the sleeves, get involved, multitask, and just get it done are the kind of people that are going to be successful.
David, I remember you telling me a while back about Go Outdoors and the founder and the story. Perhaps would you like to share that experience of how he was involved and then less involved and back again or something?
Yeah, I think that's a very typical case, and I think people from the last question, I think a combination of flexibility and speed of decision making are some of the things that kind of look for, particularly moving from a large corporate environment to a smaller corporate environment. And Go Outdoors has actually gone the other way around. It's a small business that's now become a much large business, sort of by a shop outlet. When we invested in it, it's got about 50 shops, so it's doing 10 million now, it's doing 250 million pounds. And the role of the founder and his relationship with the non-executive chairman over the years, because we've been invested 18 years in our business, so we'll take something out, have changed. So he's had about 4 different chairmen in that period. And the founder's role has changed. So in the early part of the year, he was very much operationally focused, driving the business forward, taking all the decisions. In fact, taking all the decisions in all the business for everybody who's in it, I think. And part of the chairman's role was just to try and ease him back in certain areas when, in terms of just allowing him as the business group to make sure that he didn't implode as that goes on. There was then the point when actually he had to step back and put in management underneath him, and there was a very difficult transitional period for about a year, where effectively the chairman's role was back as a bridge almost between ourselves as the investor at that point, and then him and the management team still could actually play different roles in that to help him transition to stepping back. And then there was a point where we needed him to drive the expansion strategy through. We wanted him to come back into the business to play a little bit more of a specific role in a specific area, at which point we actually changed the chairman as well. And then latterly, for the 4th phase, the chairman has then changed again, and we're in the process now of stepping back. And the issue for the founders is, as you get nearer the exit point, is their desire to want to come back in and change and get confused, I think, between the shareholder role and the management role. And those two things are still, I think, in people's minds are quite difficult to separate. And that kind of introducing a bit of corporate governance is one of the biggest changes that the businesses go through as they try to separate out that role, where in the main, if they have had any board meetings or get together at all, before they receive private equity, all of those things in their minds are melded as one. The shareholder role and the management role are one and the same, so you've got to separate those out. But it does, as you get closer to the money, it gets harder to keep that separation.
Alex, you sit behind the scenes with all the bits of legal paperwork. How are these VC private equity-backed companies structuring a relationship with these people? Are they, we talked about swapping in and out, good leaver, bad leaver clauses. Is getting a job in this world, do you see a contract that looks completely different to one that you would see if you were going for a job in a big corporate?
I think we could probably do a whole session on exec terms. Non-exec terms kind of tend to be a little bit more straightforward, but I guess the key difference in kind of private equity or VC-backed company tends to be around the equity, and typically, certainly on the exec side, there'll be a kind of sweet pool of equity that is kind of pretty much up for grabs if you leave, and you look to negotiate terms around that. So, everything in circumstances that you leave, but also what we try and do with the executive team would be that there might be a vesting over time, so that at least some contribution is recognised. But I'd say that's probably the key, because the investors want their execs to be engaged in basically driving the business through to exit. So your reward, and I think it's important when you're looking into these businesses, they're essentially illiquid until exit. So you may have some shares, but they won't necessarily be worth anything until there's an exit scenario, and there's no guarantee when that might be. I mean, in terms of restrictive covenants and what have you, I don't think there's necessarily any great difference. Again, if you're an executive, then you may well be signed up to an investment agreement, and those restrictions may be for longer because they're more enforceable in an investment agreement scenario as a kind of co-investor than in an employment agreement where you're unlikely to be kind of more than 9-12 month restriction.
Can I just add on to that, Edward's comment? There's been a couple of developments across the market, so I was just talking about what YFM at this stage in terms of, so they have non-executive chairman can be remunerated, or not, it's non-exec and exec chairman, the board gets more blurred. But effectively there's a sweet equity pot into which the non-exec chairman can invest, or they might end up with 1 to 1% of the business, depending on the size of the business, sometimes even a little bit more than that. But increasingly over probably the last 4 or 5 years, in what's called the lower mid-market, so people who are doing equity investments, investing in businesses with enterprise values less than about 50 million, have been looking for co-invest from the chairman as well on institutional terms. So you might actually end up finding you might have 2 different types of investments. You'll have a sweet equity fund and you'll have some institutional loan notes with yield ranking alongside it. And those 2 things, that's been evolving over the last few years. We've seen that very different. So if you go to the very big, the larger and the mega buyout market, you'll be on either some kind of option pool or warrants or a small sort in the equity because the size of the equity share is different. And I think in part that's because quite a lot of the people investing at the sub £50 million market are people like us who are actually taking minority investments. So it's a greater alignment for the chairman.
So you're using rather than contracts, you're using the financial incentive as the reason to align?
Yeah, if you're going to look at the little wraps of piece of paper you get from the employment contract and everything else, it's probably the London's instrument. You want to look at the one that looks the least built, because actually we want to have put attention to it.
Okay. Hazel, Cynthia, how did you get these roles? I had a call the other day from somebody saying, I want to be an NED in this VC, can you go and get me one? And I said, well, I can't really, I don't know. So the genuine question for you 3 is, where do you go to headhunters? How do you get known to and selected to join this club?
So if you're looking for a role as an NED in a private equity-backed business, then the place to start is networking with the private equity community. And that means going and talking to a whole bunch of people like David or like the investors that were on the panel before us, because they have large portfolio companies, and there is always movement in those portfolio companies over time as NEDs come in, NEDs go out, etc. And so the first place to start, I think, is really out there, meeting and greeting, going and talking to the private equity funds. And saying these are my skills, this is what I can do, and if you research their portfolio and there's a particular company in there that you think that you've got, you can add value to, saying I'd like to talk to X or to Y, is there an opportunity? What's happening? But other key stakeholders are the lawyers, the accountants, the corporate finance advisors, people like that, people who are we work with a whole bunch of different clients and interact with a wide variety of other stakeholders as well. So it's quite frequent that we'll know of an opportunity that is in a particular company, and sometimes it's just you're in the right place at the right time. You've got a particular skill set and a particular sector. Oh, right, I know somebody who's looking for one of those. Then you make the introduction.
And David, I think you at you're building a pool, aren't you, of people?
We have many pools, none of them dark. Just before I talk about the YFM, if you try to position yourself, it's private equity is quite an interesting term itself. It's not a great brand, private, it's not great in the equities. But if you take that marketplace, it can be quite opaque. but it is segmented. So there are certain, so there's firms, the best place to start with BCA handbook, you look at how much they're managing. But the very big firms tend to have a very different approach to the way that they will go about acquiring people to help them. And they'll have a combination of non-exec directors, and increasingly now, if they're trying to raise money, they're asked about how many entrepreneurs in residence they have, which is the term which is coming up. And I know the first time that we were asked, we didn't actually include what we were talking about, so it wasn't very good in front of our investors. But then we don't, that's not the sort of style of investment we have. And the entrepreneur residence, where it's important, if you're going to try and picture that market, those are people like Sinbad and KKR and Blackstone, the kind of levels there, is we're all busy, but also slightly lazy in this area, right? Things come to them. So actually, if you have worked in a tangential industry or competitor business to something in which they are invested, and most of these things you can probably name what they're invested in, then actually they would be dying to talk to you about your experience, because actually they're increasingly becoming sector focused. So if they're in your sector, the one thing that they want to do is be able to, when the next deal comes along, the acquisition comes along, the business that they've got, is to so you position yourself. So if you're where you are, if they've got a large exposure to the aerospace market, you happen to be the ex-MD of British Aerospace, then you're well positioned or run one of their divisions. So there's a bit about trying to match yourself to the sort of people, and some of them now say that you're within RCR, whether we're sector focused or whether we're generalist. So you can use that. Now, in terms of how you could do it, you come to, I think actually half my hand at the back from the last session, I said how do you get into this? You could come join one of our classes that says what does private equity want from non-executive directors, which is one of the ways that we recruit in non-executive directors in running different things in the regions, or to be kind of what we do, how the role works, the different types of role, and you can explain that, so you can look out for something along those lines. From my own personal experience, we get absolutely bombarded by recruitment agents. We have a spam filter and a PA. It basically just knocks them all back. There are so many that you get that you just haven't got time to look at all of them. So if you've got lots of good agents there, and you've got non-executive directors coming, that tends not to be the way, because it's so we as firms are now tasked with trying to tell our investors how we differentiate ourselves in the market. And part of that is to find people who help us either look and assess the deals, which is entrepreneur residence at one end, potential non-exec chairman down at the other. And we will look to recruit that we want to recruit, but we run classes, we run sort of a whole series of different sessions, and then we have sector pools in terms of specific areas where we happen to be invested, which are, for us, it's retail, healthcare, software, IT, and UK manufacturing, very broad areas. And then we run clubs that people join as part of those, and they either become minded persons or not. And just as a final point, with all of it there, but for us, you take some of the deals that we've done over the last couple of years, that we've done 20 investments, because we give some idea of an individual company's scale. Half of those investments came direct to us. They didn't come through an advisor, and they came either through a non-exec chairman who we had backed previously, or a CEO who we backed previously, or somebody who'd come in through one of our non-exec chairman clubs. So a definite way in terms of in doing something, anybody in private equity, just to bring them a deal. And then you'll probably find that the deal will cut yourself as well.
And what about the sort of tangential roles? So rather than working in a portfolio company, whether you become whether it's an employee of a VC firm, it's a non-exec of a fund, an advisor, consultant, how do those sorts of jobs get found in mingle and stuff? Adam, do you have any views from looking at it from your angle and the different clients you have?
To be honest, I'm more focused on the kind of deal side, so that kind of level at fund level, we've got a separate team who do the fund stuff. My sense from various clients that I do have in a kind of mid-market, lower mid-market private equity is that they tend to approach people who are kind of industry figures and try and get them involved. So it seems that it's more that they'll get to know people, and then that network sort of self-generates, and then they will invite those people to kind of sit on an advisory committee or be part of that network, and it won't necessarily be a big commitment at the time. I'm not aware of a kind of them running some formal kind of recruitment processes for that. I think it's more a kind of, if you see someone who you think will add value, you snap them up. But again, it's coming through those kind of networking opportunities more than anything.
And Hazel, do you see a common theme?
I completely agree with that. I think it's a very small market, actually. There are a relatively small number of funds, and they're not big employers, and they by and large recruit, certainly at the senior level, from people that they know or people that they've made money with in the past. And so I think that would be a very, very difficult thing to do. I will just pick up on the kind of entrepreneur in residence idea, because quite a lot of funds also are increasingly employing operating partners. And those operating partners, a fund will buy into a company, and then will actually, as well as just sitting on the board and in a kind of an NED type role, they'll actually employ people within the fund to go in and work with the management team, often on particular strategic initiatives or operational issues. And those operating partners are generally recruited from industry, from people who have a particular skill set that is relevant to that portfolio company. So that's also an option. But again, often those roles come through word of mouth and through people that you know, and they're not often kind of out there advertised through a headhunter.
Would it be fair to say you should need to be sort of known as an expert and known as a leader in an industry? That's where you project yourself to be, and then it will start coming to you. David, is that right?
Maybe. I think it all depends on how much money is being deployed. The larger the sum of money, then the bigger noise you've got to be in the industry. I think if you there are certain companies that have developed operating partners where perhaps you can join their club. So there are so our network, we don't put operating partners, that's what it is. It's the difference in terms of pay. You don't get paid a lot of it. These days, some do, some don't. There's Living Bridge, we're not operating partners. They are Octopus, who do venture. The other area, because there are different scales of role that you might consider in some private equity, although as Hazel said, it is a bit like trying to get the head of a pin, because they're not very big roles. So again, the larger the sum of money to be employed on an advisory panel, the bigger noise you've got to be on the industry. The other place that is emerging, which is at the opposite end of the scale, is venture, proper venture, which venture is usually now determined as a business, which is post-revenue but pre-profit. It's kind of where most venture money is going. Now, venture do tend to try and collect advisory panels around them because the nature, some are sector specific, and some are just in terms of the mentoring approach, in terms of the biggest and most successful venture investors in the UK in terms of funds that continue to raise have been Amadeus, Index and Vault, and they've been by far the best in terms of the serial funds that one got off the top of my head. And then you've got other people below that. So I'll have people on advisory committees, and if you are particularly from certain industries like healthcare, nearly all healthcare venture investors will have an advisory board around them because that's an expectation of investors. If you want to go somewhere with your venture capital trust is a shrinking marketplace in terms of the number of trusts. It's basically a market that's matured and is now consolidating. So the number of trusts that you're aiming at to sit on the board there has reduced, as has the number of board seats. So that's probably not an area. And actually that's one where that is all of those trusts tend to recruit. They do recruit through group agents, but the managers tend not to have much of an influence.
We've got about 5 minutes left. Just very quickly, just as a literally one. What is the big characteristic that you guys see if some of these people would like to start businesses or maybe get venture back into their businesses? What is the one thing in the person? And I know David said this is asking, but for business. What's the one thing that makes VC go, yeah, you're one I want to back?
Well, that's
Slightly one thing, otherwise we've got people.
Slightly different from what I thought you were going to say, I thought you were going to say what's the one characteristic you need, and I think you need to be completely bloody minded and persistent and resilient in order to raise venture capital money, because it is really, really hard, and lots and lots of people are going to say no, and you've just got to kind of keep at it.
Adam, what do you, either way, yes, what's the character you have to be, or what do people want? Hopefully they're the same thing, actually.
I think, obviously, as a lawyer, I'm tend to take a conservative view on things, but putting myself in the shoes of an investor, you need to be hungry, and they need to see that you're hungry and that you're going to stick with something. So I'd say hunger, stickability, are one thing that they do look at. Sorry to be contradicted by David here, but we tend to send out questionnaires, and there's a question on there about what your net worth is, and what they're looking at is how important is this to you? Is it something that you're really committed to, or is it just a frolic? And obviously you see serial entrepreneurs who've made millions and are still hungry, and that's not the be all and end all, but it's that hunger and that real motivation to make a success of it.
So far we're bloody minded because we're hungry. So, David.
Well, yeah, and also it's going to be fair either, because actually this was right. There is a two-part process. Before you've got the money, you do have to be absolutely bloody-minded and determined. And once you've got the money, you've got to be really flexible and adaptable. So if you are both of those things, then fine. Then you're the people for it.
Great, thank you very much. I think definitely the message I'm taking away, which is get the attention, show yourself to be an expert. Be willing to come in and sort of invest alongside, nothing like the money men feeling like you're another money man. I think one thing we didn't particularly got it, but I wanted to stress is when you make this for advisors, the paperwork is complicated around anything to do with venture, so don't just dance into it. Is there any one quick question or two from the audience to this panel I'd like to ask about venture capital models?
Yeah.
Yes. Judith.
Is it still standard protocol? Sorry, is it still standard tactics in the venture capital world to somewhat lead a company or entrepreneur on to a certain equity stake for a certain amount of money, and then on deal day to cut the amount of money in half and request twice the amount of equity, as I've seen so many times?
That's simple.
Without course.
David, have RVCs playing games with entrepreneurs?
Still, I mean.
Yeah.
I would hope not, because at the end of the day, that's not going to be a sustainable business practice. That's the sort of person who will deal with once and never again if you feel you're forced to deal. And I said to you, we are not alone in sort of talking to you about, say, half of our deals come to us direct. All of our investors are forcing us to say, how do we originate deals that we can't do? And that pressure ultimately on us, we can manage to filter down after 30 odd years of maturing into an industry which is behaving, which should behave properly. So we want to do things in the business, we want to do business good again, and we'll never do that. We'll do that if we behave like that.
Sorry, can I just answer that?